I've been using the Ecovacs Deebot OZMO 600, also known as the DD35 model, from China for 3 years now. I loved it so much that when my sister asked me for a recommendation on robot vacuums, I had no hesitation getting her a Deebot N79S as her housewarming gift in the US. I loved that the DD35 was low profile and really seemed to suck up all the fuzz and hair that accumulate around the apartment on a daily basis. There are so many robot vacuums in the market nowadays that I don't even feel confident giving you a specific recommendation on a particular model. What I do want to talk about in this video is my impressions of Ecovac's recent line of OZMO T8 robot vacuums. In this impressions video, you'll find out whether the tech, functionality, and performance are worth the cost of an upgrade over an older model like the DD35. Much like my older DD35, I had purchased the T8 this year over the 11/11 shopping day on Taobao at a discounted price of 2,499 renminbi, which works out to be about $382 US. This year's T8 has two new optional accessories. First one, which is an oscillating mopping attachment, and the second one is a self-emptying dustbin. In China, on Taobao, the option with the dustbin is sold as the T8 Max Plus, and the option with the oscillating mopping attachment is called the T8 Max. I opted for the T8 Max with the mopping attachment, but decided to skip the self-emptying dustbin because I wouldn't be able to fit this under the sideboard near the entrance of my flat. As a side note, the marketing materials say that the optional OZMO Pro-Mopping System, which is a vibrating mopping attachment, oscillates 480 times per minute for greater scrubbing power. It's meant to be used with disposable cleaning pads and water to work properly. I found that wrapping the T8's original cloth with disposable wet wipes from the local grocery store works just as well. There's an even fancier version of the T8 called the T8 AIVI, released earlier this year, that adds an object recognition camera and can double as a roving home surveillance monitor. Not sure I would ever need to see things from my vacuum's point of view though. About the design of the OZMO T8, you'd be forgiven for mistaking this white version of the T8 to another similarly feature-packed robot vacuum from Xiaomi called the Roborock S6 MaxV. Both measure 13.9 inches across, both cleverly conceal their dustbin and brush cleaning tool under a plastic lid, and both have a laser mapping sensor under a raised disc emblazoned with their respective company's logos. To be honest, I initially thought they were the same robot vacuum, but a closer look reveals the differences. At 3.7 inches high, the T8 is 1/10 of an inch shorter than the S6 MaxV. A single button for cleaning resides on the top of the T8, while a large red power switch sits under the plastic hood. Flip the T8 over to reveal two chunky rubberized wheels, a small swiveling wheel near the front, and a bevy of sensors. A pair of tri-spoke brushes that are angled downward at the front of the bot feed debris into the bristle and rubber fin roller brush. A removable water reservoir resides at the rear of the T8 for the standard mopping feature. This can be substituted for the Pro-Mopping System attachment that'll give you the 480 oscillation mopping goodness. The onboard dustbin has a plastic handle that also serves as the release mechanism for the bin. A red button on the side gently opens the bin and allows for easy access for cleaning the filters, including a HEPA filter, which I really appreciate. The basic dock that's included with the T8 is identical to the DD35's and is small and unobtrusive. Beneath the dock is a cord wrapper to shorten the length of the wire for cable management. I'm still on the fence on how much better the T8's vacuuming abilities are compared to the DD35. It does provide 4 levels of suction power, compared to the DD35's singular suction level, and auto floor material sensing to switch between the different levels. For instance, the T8 increases suction for carpets and decreases suction for tiles. The first time I powered on the T8 and paired it with the Ecovacs Home app, the T8 came to life, started to rotate in place, presumably using its laser scanner to get an approximate map of my apartment, outlining as much of my flat's floor area that it can see. The T8 moves along the closest wall and follows this edge until it can complete a closed path to where it started. It then fills in this area using a serpentine route before proceeding to map another area of the apartment in a similar manner. It does this until the full initial map is covered. I've noticed that the initial mapping run slowly exposes sections of the apartment very much like an RPG video game. One important thing to note though is that if you leave a door closed during this mapping run and open it during a subsequent regular run, this new room will be added to the map, but will not be labeled, nor will it be cleanable as a room. Meaning the T8 will know the room is there, but it won't clean this room because it doesn't have an address. The only way to add this room is to reset the map, which is a little bit inconvenient and unfortunate. In my footage of the T8 making its rounds, I picked up the laser light on the camera, but in person you don't see this laser range-finding light even in complete darkness. It did manage to avoid slamming into objects much better than the DD35 did, but it would still engage the rubber bumpers on thin table and chair legs every now and then. The T8 will nudge soft objects in front of it until it can't, at which point it will try to clean around it. Despite its wide diameter, the robot vacuum has a very accurate sense of its own dimensions and quietly and deftly maneuvers around tricky furniture. It was able to climb over room thresholds of up to 2 centimeters fairly easily too. The T8's navigation was equally impressive, and when compared to the DD35 in terms of suction, I noticed it picks up slightly more debris, perhaps of how meticulously it traversed the room, not necessarily because it has a wildly more powerful vacuum motor. On my hardwood floors, the T8's 2 spinning whiskers still had a small quirk of spreading certain small debris around every now and then, instead of sucking them up. If the crumb happens to fall within 80% of the vacuum center width, it would get sucked up. Otherwise, it would fling the debris a few inches away, and hopefully that gets picked up on a subsequent pass. Carpet and rug cleaning on the T8 triggers the increased suction mode, which compensates for the reduced suction power between the roller and the nap of the carpet. Conversely, the T8 has a quiet mode for presumably nighttime and bedroom cleaning. It is noticeably quieter than the DD35. There have been many times when the T8 would sneak up behind me when I was distracted with something else and scare the hell out of me. Your conversations on the phone or TV watching will not be interrupted by the T8. The out-of-the-box mopping ability of the T8 is identical to the DD35. It basically drags a moist cloth along its cleaning path and uses the vacuum suction to dry the wet patch. Because it's a passive action, hardened stains like sauce splashes in the kitchen or water spots from a wet boot print by the entrance don't completely come off in a single pass. It's good enough for a daily once-over on tile, but if you truly want to get a good scrubbing in, you might want to purchase the Pro-Mopping System attachment or get a dedicated mopper. More on that later. When mopping, the T8 provides 3 levels of wetness for the mop. The low setting was basically pointless unless the cloth was pre-moistened. I also found that I had to increase the water level from the default medium to high just to see the T8's path on the floor. As per the instructions, the only recommended cleaning agent should be water. I haven't tried adding a few drops of liquid detergent or Windex to the reservoir yet, but I would imagine that there would be no harm. Please do leave a comment below if you've tried adding any other cleaning fluids while you're using the robot vacuum. I'd love to know. So the T8 has an auto empty station accessory, which in China is sold as the T8 Max Plus, and this automatically empties the onboard dustbin and replaces the charging dock. I've read that the Ecovacs self-emptying station requires some self-assembly to bolt on the plastic charging base onto the upper bin. 2 black plastic rectangular ducts on the vacuum require an included plastic skeleton key that must be removed before the auto-emptying dustbin will fit into the station correctly. It takes about 30 seconds to empty the vacuum and will sound like a loud handheld vacuum when doing the self-emptying function. The T8 Pro-Mopping System accessory replaces the onboard water tank and removable mopping plate with a motorized mopping plate and a water reservoir. Ecovacs says the Pro Mopper will scrub and remove up to 99.26% of bacteria on floors using water alone. It's a bold claim, but I wouldn't go licking surfaces to check. When attached to the T8, the Pro Mopper worked better than the mopping attachment included with the bot. It easily clicked into the rear of the vacuum in place of the included tank too. The Pro Mopper picked up more dirt on its disposable pad and lessened the visibility of water spots around my kitchen floor. Surprisingly, it was much louder than the vacuum running on its own, likely due to the plate oscillating on the floor. Commanding the T8 to do your dirty work is primarily done through the Ecovacs Home app, available for both Android and iOS. This is where I missed the handheld remote the old DD35 came with. You now have no choice but to have your mobile phone with you in order to move the T8 around manually. However, the app is detailed enough that you can choose specific areas or rooms to clean and specify the order you would like them cleaned. One feature it lacks is the ability to do an ad hoc spot cleaning. As a workaround, you have to draw a custom box on the map to have the T8 clean one particular area. It works, but it seems a bit cumbersome for a quick cleanup. Cleaning power is also heavily customizable. Choose from cleaning an area once or twice and vacuuming in quiet, standard, max, or max plus mode. Additionally, the mopping mode lets you choose from low, medium, high water flow levels. As if that's not enough, there are additional options for turning on auto boost suction, enabling obstacle avoidance, continuing cleaning after recharging, and advanced mode, which enables specific area cleaning, custom cleaning, virtual boundaries, and multi-floor mapping. The T8 generated a map with impressive speed. After its initial run, not only did it have a mostly accurate map of my flat, but it also divided up areas with incredible accuracy and applied alphabetical labels to each. It's also possible to edit the map to add virtual boundaries and no mop zones. In my testing, the T8 mostly excelled at adhering to these virtual boundaries and no mop zones to within an inch of the map, though the front of the bot flirted with going on to my designated carpeted no cleaning zones a few times. Thankfully, the mop end of the T8 never fully went on to the carpet. Unfortunately, while the T8 was quick to generate a map, it was inconsistent. At one point, I reset the map, which triggers the bot to create a new one. Instead of the 6 well-divided areas from the first map, I got 8. An additional room was labeled in my home gym using the gap between my treadmill and bench as a room divider. Another room was created out of a small strip between no cleaning zones, even though there's no way the T8 could physically fit in that area. It made no sense. According to Ecovacs, there are certain limitations on their mapping redrawing capabilities for now. For instance, a square room cannot be divided to 4 quarters. Since the T8 uses a laser to navigate, the brightness of a room doesn't affect how accurate the map is. So my advice is to reset the map and try to remove as many obstacles from the T8's path on its mapping run, just so it can clearly see the actual walls and other permanent barriers in a room. You can always draw exclusion zones for your stuff when doing a regular run. The T8 is also capable of creating multi-floor maps, but I live in a single floor flat, so I wasn't able to test this feature out. So there's a lot of tech in the T8, and it's definitely a few steps up from the DD35 in terms of vacuuming smarts, including room mapping, suction, and mop wetness levels, object avoidance, multi-floor maps, and room order customizability, with optional features enabled by accessories such as the Pro-Mopping System and auto emptying station accessory. But you do lose having a manual remote control and an extra 15mm in clearance. So taking the discounted price of the T8 into account, compared to the price of the DD35 when it came out 3 years ago, I wouldn't hesitate to get the T8 if this is going to be your first robot vacuum. However, if like me, you currently have a vacuum that functions well, and you're not looking for a serious mopping solution, then I would hold off on purchasing this particular model as an upgrade. I would also consider looking into the Roborock S6 MaxV or the Roomba S9 as serious competitors, especially if you can get them at a similarly reduced price. I hope this impressions video gives you some insight into the Ecovacs Deebot OZMO T8. Drop me a comment if you have any questions about the vacuum or want me to cover anything else about it in a future video. Thanks for watching.